Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We appreciate you coming and hanging out with us again on Wisdom on Wednesday. And I'm Ray. I'll be hosting this particular podcast today. I appreciate your time, your efforts, and your energy for spending time with us over this short time that we've been a channel. Channel is growing. We're getting feedback, we're getting comments, and our subscriptions are growing. So I ask you to continue to share. We're very close. We're super close to another milestone. We're close to 1,000 subscriptions, and we only need a few. So if you can share, if you can subscribe, we really appreciate it. I hope you've been having a great week, and I kind of want to get into this episode so we can grow together prayerfully. As I was seeking the Lord for a multiplicity of things, this one was really glaring in my heart to really express, to share, and to remind myself on a regular basis. Wise people, you are enough. Wise people, remember that you are enough. In the hustle and bustle of trying to be an adult in this current stage of our lives, many times we create lofty goals. We create plans to finish our advanced degrees. We have plans to advance on our jobs. We have all these goals, these things that if we got them, so to speak, we would feel that much better. If we achieve this, I would have the dopamine that make me feel like my life is worth living. If I get here, if I accomplish this. Unfortunately, what happens, wise friends, is we put all these things around us and before us so that we can be moved by a feeling that actually pushes us on through the next day and stage of life. But I want to interject a thought today that what if none of those things that you want to happen? What would be your motivation for getting up in the morning? If some of those goals, aspirations of things that people attach to us and make us say, if you advance on your career, you must be successful. People say things like if you're married, you should have 2.5 children, a white picket fence, and a home. What if those things don't happen? Do you not have any worth? Are you not special? Are you not successful if you don't make the American dream, as they speak? Many people call it the American nightmare. Is that it started out a dream, but as we go through other people's goals and try to live through other people's accomplishments, sometimes we just don't fit the mold. So I want to encourage you today that you are enough. You are enough because you were made in God's image and his likeness, and you were created for a purpose. Just because your purpose doesn't line up with somebody else's purpose who looks like they're famous, who looks like they're enjoying their life, who looks like they're successful, doesn't mean that because your life doesn't look like theirs, you're not successful. Success is something that only you can prescribe. Success is only something you can describe. Success is a life worth living. So the question you must ask yourself, have you created a life worth living? Or are you just living off of what somebody else told you to do? Are you waking up every day trying to reach someone else's goals? Or have you trusted God enough to say that this is the day that the Lord has made, and I will rejoice and be glad in it? When God's really helping me with areas like this, it reminds me of sometimes we feel like if we're not in a space of a large auditorium, if we're not in a space of amassing a lot of things or being known by our personal accomplishments, somehow we're not successful. But I beg to differ today. I think a man is successful when he can come home at night and look at his wife in the face and speak to his children and possibly read bedtime stories to them and wake up the next morning and still have those same people he planned to see again for one more day. That's success. Success for a man or a woman who's raised their adult children, and their adult children still want to come and hang around them and talk to them and ask them things about life and speak to them about their accomplishments, their dreams, their goals, and ask them what do they think. That's success. Or even in a space where you can be a pastor, an under shepherd, and possibly have a member come and say that because of your efforts, because of the things that you've shown us how to love, your temperament with us, I too want to serve people. I want to serve God. I want to be able to do things that makes me feel like I'm successful because I see you as successful. That's successful, family. And just because I ran off a couple of things, that doesn't mean they have to line up with you. That doesn't mean that because those things are successful to me, those have to be yours. What does success look like? Whatever success looks like to you, I want to remind you, you are enough. Even if you don't get the job, you're enough. Even if you don't move into that fancy house, you're enough. Even if you don't accomplish those things that you said you would accomplish in 2025, you are still enough. Just because we don't make it to the goalpost when we thought we would make it there doesn't mean that we're less valuable of a person. It just means that we had to reevaluate our plans. You see where we're going? Just because you didn't make it in the time frame that you had already predetermined doesn't take away from your self-worth. All it does is it shows us that we need to plan better. We need to reevaluate our resources. We need to make certain that we're not moving off of emotion and put a plan in place so that we can actually work that plan and check off markers as we meet them. I'm reminded of when I was in the military, and we had these things called road marches. And I'm sure you've heard this story before. Just pretend like you've never heard it before. And they would tell us how far we had to go before we walked. And I think there was some type of mental warfare going on, trying to prepare our minds, that we heard something so daunting, something so miserable that we had to sit in that. So we had weeks to think about walking 26 miles. And the 26-mile road marches was us walking with 80-pound rucksacks, big backpacks on our backs, and in jungle boots and helmets, and carrying our weapons and things of that nature. So it wasn't the fact that walking was hard, but sometimes it was looking at the task that was hard. Realizing that even though we have vehicles that could take us where we needed to be, what the genius behind our particular unit was doing was they were preparing our minds for the worst possible scenario. If the cars don't work, if the trucks don't start, if the helicopters don't land, you still have your feet. So you are enough. Even though you don't like walking a long distance, even though you have to carry several pairs of socks because when you walk, your feet sweat, and ultimately wet feet produce blisters, and you gotta sit down and you gotta put powder on your feet and take care of your wounds. And I want to encourage somebody today, just because you didn't make it because you got hurt, have a seat. Have a seat and evaluate where you got hurt. Put some powder on your feet and get back to moving. Sit down. Maybe the marriage didn't work. Have an introspective conversation with yourself and ask yourself, I'm sad that it didn't work, but moreover, help me understand my part. Sit down and get back to moving. Just because something didn't work out in the manner in which you thought it should doesn't mean you're not enough. Just because the job didn't work out, just because the business venture didn't work out yet, doesn't mean that you're not enough. Just because you bring value to your employer and your employer doesn't see the value in what you say, doesn't mean that you have less value. It just means that they don't have ears to recognize valuable content just yet. So as long as you understand that you have value, it may mean that you may not be with that employer long. It just means that you need to find your tribe. You need to find the people who recognize what you bring to their lives. And since you know that you are enough and that you were made in God's image and in God's likeness, everything's not going to work out in your favor, but your failures are going to work somebody else's favor perfectly. You see, when you understand the purpose of failure, the failure is not so that we can sit still and lick our wounds. Failure is so that we can actually attract people who have favor on their lives to help us get from one place to another. You see, as we walk down that road, it wasn't just a matter that we were walking for 26 miles. One of the hardest things for me to ascertain was, as we were walking, as we were trying to keep our mind off of the task that we were doing, we would hear these big trucks called deuce and a halves. They would come rumbling down the road. And I would say, man, it sure would be nice to get on that truck. And that wasn't the worst part, wise friends. The deuce and a half would go riding by, and in the back of the truck, it was empty. Empty enough for me to run and jump on. Empty enough for me and 10 of my buddies to jump on, and this 26 miles would be done in 15 minutes. But no, We've got to walk for 3.5, 4.5 hours maybe just to complete this walk. Because before we can appreciate riding in a truck, we had to value what was enough. At that particular time, the mission of the day was to walk. And if we don't appreciate the 2 legs that we have to stand on, it'll be hard to appreciate riding in a truck. So the genius behind military was to let me see every day is your worst day. Now, what are you going to do with it? Every day is the worst possibility, the worst conditions. The weather is terrible. You don't get to stay inside because it's raining. You don't get to stay inside because it's cold outside. So what they did was they trained us that the worst possible thing can happen in your life. What are you going to do with it? You are enough. You don't get a chance to say it's cold outside. You don't get a chance to say I don't feel good. What it says is, this is the task. Regardless of how hard it is, I am enough to accomplish it. I am enough to fulfill my dreams and my aspirations. I am enough to be everything that God has called me to be in this season of my life. What are you going through right now? What's the thing that have you up at night, wondering if this is going to work out? What's the thing that have you worried at night? Are you concerned about your health? Well, if you're concerned about your health, you're the only one that can change your health. You're the only one that can change the way that you feel. If the doctor gave you some bad news and said lose 15, 20 pounds, you know what you can do. You can lose 20 to 25 pounds. Why would you leave your health in somebody else's conversation? Why would you leave that to chance? I have a wonderful opportunity of speaking into the lives of people on a weekly basis, and I consider myself blessed. I'm not special, but I'm just grateful that God allowed me to do some things to speak to people about how good He is. And one of the things I try to emphasize to people is you do not know what tomorrow may bring. So will you wake up and show up in today knowing that you are enough to fulfill the task that God woke you up for? Why did He get you out the bed, wise friend? What did you wake up for today? Did you wake up to complain about what didn't happen yesterday? Did you wake up to see exactly what tomorrow may bring? Did you wake up to see if this is the day I'm going to meet that person, I'm going to have that conversation, I'm going to tell a complete stranger about my dream? I never know when I'm entertaining an angel. So I'm going to share everywhere I go because I have a purpose, because God had a plan for me, because I am enough. Regardless of what people say, regardless of people's reception of me, I am enough. I'm enough to lead my family. I'm enough to serve my wife. I'm enough to apologize to my children. I'm enough to tell another man that I love you and I respect you. I'm enough to learn how to love women and not objectify them. I'm enough because God showed me that He gave me His very best. And since He gave me His very best, I have to know without a shadow of a doubt, I am enough to accomplish every goal, every task, everything He's called me to be. I may not do it in the time that somebody else is watching me. I may not do it as well as somebody else. I may not do it where people will applaud, but I will finish. I will complete what He called me to do. I will stand up every day and be grateful that I have another chance to get it right. So my ask for you today is this. Who told you that you weren't enough? And why are you still listening to them? Who told you that you weren't pretty enough? And why are you still listening to that lie? Who told you that you were stupid? And you still believe that lie? Who told you that you would never be married? And you still believe that lie? Who told you that you wouldn't be 50 or 60 years old? And here you are today. Why are you still believing the lies of a hater? Why are you still believing the lies of a hurt person who couldn't give nothing but hurt? So today I want to encourage you that you are enough to do everything that God woke you up to do. I pray that this word was a blessing for you, that it helps you remember not to give up just because it's not going your way, but you are enough to endure. You are enough to persevere. You are enough to get everything done that you dreamt of. Please remember that God loved you in 2024, and He loves you so much more in 2025. God bless you. Have a wonderful day and a great week. Take care.